Hey, good morning. Horace Ford here. Got another message I want to share with you, straight from my heart to yours, and something that I've struggled with for a long, long time, and I'm finally coming to a right understanding about. And I just want to share with you what I've learned and what I need to regularly remind myself of, and I hope that it'll help many of you out there. I feel like there's a lot of people in the same boat. If I can help just one, it'll be worth it. But you know, we have struggles in life. We have failures. We do dumb things, and a lot of times we get stuck right there. And it we begin to see ourselves only as our struggle or our failure. But I want to assure you that your struggle, your failure, your whatever the issue is, it doesn't define you. It is not who you are. Just want to give a couple of quick examples that I like to think about to help remind me of this regularly. Because for so long, I saw myself as a failure. I saw myself the way I thought others looked at me. I defined myself by the stupid stuff I had done, and it made it hard to move beyond that to be able to fulfill my potential and to be a success and to be happy in life. When you're always looking at yourself in a dark light, it's hard to enjoy life, and there's so much out there to enjoy. Couple of things I want to throw out there, a couple people I want to mention that maybe will encourage you as they do me. A lot of you, I'm sure, know who Thomas Edison is. He's credited with inventing the incandescent light bulb. Well, what you may not know is that when Thomas Edison was in school, his instructors said that he was too stupid to learn anything. Now, this is a guy we think of today as a genius, but his instructors thought he was dumb as a box of rocks. What if Thomas Edison had listened to what his instructors said about him? What if he had defined himself as they defined him? Well, then he certainly wouldn't have been the one to invent the light bulb, now would he? He probably would have been a miserable failure all his life. And even as he began his journey to invent this light bulb, and he invented many other things as well, and had a number of good scientific theories, but something else you may not know, he failed 1,000 times, had 1,000 failed attempts to invent this light bulb. What if he had said, well, at some point during all this trying, he had said, well, I just keep failing over and over and over. I'm not going to try anymore. Same thing. Two places where he could have gotten stuck, where he could have not been able to move beyond, and he wouldn't have been this guy that we call a genius and a great inventor now. Another name I want to throw out there is Lucille Ball. I Love Lucy fame, the old TV show. Might be a lot older than some of you, but I'm sure you can Google it. It's really, really famous as a comedy TV show. But Lucille Ball, when she was in drama school, her instructors felt that she would never be a success in the entertainment industry. Now, what if Lucille Ball had chosen to define herself as her instructors saw her? Somebody that would never be successful in the entertainment industry. There would be her hope and dream just out the window. What if in one of the many failed auditions, she had given up. Here's a lady that not only made this famous TV show, I Love Lucy, she acted in a number of things on Broadway and on television, and she was a successful actress, comedian, went on to be a director and a producer. She's won numerous awards. Yet, if she had gotten stuck in one of her failed attempts, if she had defined herself by the way that others saw her, she wouldn't have been able to accomplish these things. Another name that comes to mind, Mike Lindell. Now, you may know this name for a number of different reasons. The big thing I want to focus on is he is the founder and CEO of a company called MyPillow. Makes this revolutionary pillow that helps aid people in better sleep, bedding and house shoes and I don't know what all else. I mean, it's a great company from what I hear for people getting to sleep and all. But the guy's a successful businessman, entrepreneur, accomplished this himself. He invented this himself as he sought to give himself better sleep. The big thing I want to look at, though, is before Mike Lindell was this successful entrepreneur, do you know what he was? He was an addict. He was addicted to crack cocaine. But somewhere, instead of being stuck, instead of identifying himself as a crack addict, and that's all I'm ever going to be, and, I'm not going to be a success in anything, whatever, the guy became a Christian and was able to give up his addiction to crack cocaine. Another guy I want to throw out there, name's Joseph. Now, y'all might know him as, the guy with the coat of many colors. He's from the Bible. You can find a little bit about him in Genesis. Chapter 37, 12 through 36. Talks about where his brothers, in an act of jealousy, they took hold of him and threw him in a pit, took his coat of many colors, ripped it up, put some animal blood on it to sell the story that, hey, he was attacked by a wild animal and killed. But they had him in this pit, and eventually they sold him into slavery. Now, what if Joseph had chosen emotionally and mentally to remain in that pit? What if he had chosen to harbor anger and a feeling, a desire for revenge against his brothers? See, eventually Joseph rose to great power because of his ability to interpret dreams and to advise Pharaoh. He rose to power in the land of Egypt. The only person more powerful than Joseph was the Pharaoh. And because of this, when the Pharaoh had a dream that Joseph was able to interpret, they knew that famine would eventually, there'd be 7 years of plenty and then 7 years of famine come to the land. So Joseph was able to advise Pharaoh on what to do to prepare for this, and Egypt had plenty of food. Not only that, the land that his brothers were living in was affected by the famine as well. And they came to him and seeking to get food because they'd heard there was food in Egypt. So they came to buy food, and they didn't recognize him immediately. And he hid his identity for a little while. But they were able to get food from him. Now, if he'd harbored anger toward them, he would have been powerful enough that without any justification, he could simply have ordered their execution if he had stayed stuck emotionally and mentally in that pit. Something to think about there. But he did save his brothers, did save the Egyptians. Another guy, also from the Bible, probably a name you recognize as well, Moses. This is the guy that God used to lead the children of Israel out of the land of Egypt. God sent plagues against the Pharaoh of Egypt to convince him to let the children go, and Moses was the spokesperson. He also brought the 10 Commandments down off the mountain. About everybody, I guess, probably knows what the 10 Commandments are. So here's a guy that made a mistake, a huge mistake. You see, he saw an Egyptian and a Hebrew quarreling, and the Egyptian was beating the Hebrew. Well, of course, Moses, he identified with the Hebrews, even though he grew up in the house of Pharaoh, because he was originally from Hebrew parents. And he intervened and ended up killing the Egyptian. And then, of course, Pharaoh was after Moses, punishment being death. So Moses flees, goes and herds sheep on the backside of the desert. What if Moses had chosen to stay in the desert? What if he had chosen to identify himself for the rest of his life as a murderer? Then perhaps when God spoke to him out of that burning bush, he might not have been able to go along with what it was God wanted him to do. Another guy to throw out there, you've probably heard the story of Jonah and the whale. Also from the Bible, book of Jonah. Jonah was sent by God to go tell the people of Nineveh, hey, you people are evil, and because you're so evil, I'm going to wipe you out. Now, Jonah didn't want to go. The Israelis and the Ninevites, they were enemies anyway. So, when he hears God might wipe the Ninevites out, he gets pretty excited. But God's telling him, no, I want them to repent so I can spare them. So he didn't want to go. He takes off the other way. And he's on a boat and they're sailing across the sea. Well, the storm comes up. The sailors are all frightened. They're throwing stuff overboard, trying to lighten the ship. They're calling on their various gods, and eventually they try to determine, somebody must have caused this on our boat, and the gods are now angry. So who was it? And they cast lots. Lot falls on Jonah, and Jonah takes responsibility. Yes, I serve the true God. He told me to do this. I didn't want to, and now I'm here, and this storm is on you. And the solution is, you guys have got to cast me into the sea. Now, what if Jonah had stayed stuck on his sin, his failure to do what God asked him? What if he had stayed stuck on his prejudice against the Ninevites? So stuck, a lot of people get stuck on different prejudices and biases and what we call racism, and they can't move beyond those. And so they will stay stuck on these things even to their own detriment, even to their own harm. What if Jonah had done that? Probably he and all the sailors would have perished in the storm. But he took responsibility for his fault there. And after the sailors cast him into the sea, of course, he spent the 3 days and 3 nights in the whale and went on to go warn the Ninevites, who repented, who changed their ways, and God spared them. What if Jonah had stayed stuck in that boat? What if he hadn't been able to get beyond his prejudice? Another guy, Peter, he was a disciple of Jesus while he walked the earth. Saw and learned and did many great things, but Peter was still, had some things to learn. He's a little bit of a hothead and a little bit brash, and but we come down to the night where Jesus has celebrated Passover with his disciples. And now they go out into the Garden of Gethsemane, And Jesus goes and he takes his three closest disciples, one of them being Peter, and they go, and Jesus spends time in prayer. Well, eventually Judas Iscariot shows up, the betrayer. And you find in Luke 22 this story. And reading through verses 54 through 62, having arrested him, being Jesus, they led him and brought him into the high priest's house. But Peter followed at a distance. Now when they had kindled a fire in the midst of the courtyard and sat down together, Peter sat among them. And a certain servant girl, seeing him as he sat by the fire, looked intently at him and said, "This man was also with him." But he denied him, saying, "Woman, I do not know him." And after a little while another saw him and said, "You also are of them." But Peter said, "Man, I am not." Then after about an hour had passed, another confidently affirmed, saying, "Surely this fellow also was with him, for he is a Galilean." But Peter said, "Man, I do not know what you are saying." Immediately, while he was still speaking, the rooster crowed. And the Lord turned and looked at Peter. Then Peter remembered the word of the Lord, how he had said to him, "Before the rooster crows, you will deny me 3 times." So Peter went out and wept bitterly. Now, we know from history that Peter went on to be one of the greatest apostles, had a very big part in the spreading of the Christian church throughout the world. And, you can read in the book of Acts, it starts as early as the 2nd chapter, great sermons where he stood up, and not only was he brave enough to stand up in front of crowds or leaders, but he made eloquent speeches. This is a guy that had been a fisherman all his life, wasn't terribly educated, but he made eloquent speeches or sermons proclaiming Jesus and what Jesus had done and how much Jesus loved everybody and how people could come to Jesus. But what if Peter hadn't been able to get over betraying Jesus by denying him? What if he had always looked at himself from then on as the guy who let down God in the flesh? What if he always looked at himself as a failure or a coward or whatever? If he had stayed in that dark place, he wouldn't have been able to go on and do these magnificent things for Jesus that helped to spread the church by people coming to know Jesus. These are just some examples, and I find them very encouraging to me because, like I said, things that people have said or ways that people have misused me, and they always seem to lead me to then making stupid decisions, doing things I didn't need to do, getting stuck in bad places. And what if I had just stayed there? I wouldn't be talking to you right now. I wouldn't be hopefully helping some of y'all that struggle with these same issues right now. I wouldn't be able to fulfill my potential in all that I could be in this life and all that I could be for my Jesus that I love. But, I have worked to get beyond these things. I do refuse to see myself as my failure. And then I lean heavily on Jesus to help me. There's a lot of things we can get stuck on in this life. Maybe you're abused as a child or even as an adult. Maybe you have people use you and misuse you all the time. Or maybe as some of these people I've cited, you've got people that you look up to that don't have faith in you, or quite the opposite. They talk down about you and down to you, and man, you can get stuck on that stuff. You can identify as, well, they say I'm worthless. They say I'm a failure. They say I'm not going to succeed. Must be true. Or, man, all I'm ever going to be is a victim because, I've been abused or used in this way, or you carry grudges, a hard heart, look at everybody negatively, have trouble interacting socially and having healthy, long-lasting relationships because you've seen so much negative that you just get stuck on it, It happens to a lot of us. But we make, some of us, bad decisions based on these things. Do things. We get into to addictions. And when I say addiction, of course, a lot of people's mind immediately jumps to drugs. But, there's addiction to alcohol. There's addiction to so many destructive things: pornography, food addictions, gambling addictions. Just, I don't have to tell you. If you've got an addiction, you understand what I'm saying, and you know there's so many different things out there that can consume and destroy us. And usually we get into them because we were already in a bad place. Not always. I understand there's sometimes you get into them because they make you feel good, or they help you escape, or just so many different ways. But regardless of how you got into it, you can't stay there, and you can't see yourself as that struggle. You can't see yourself in that negative light. You've got to press on, and you can press on. There's so many helpful organizations and groups out there, and medications. But to me, the greatest way to press on is through a relationship with Jesus Christ. We get this idea that some people don't believe, they think it's all, the Bible's just a good book of helpful stories and ways to live and things. And to tell you the truth, if that were the case, it would still be worthwhile to get into it and to use it to prop you up and to be helpful to you. But I believe, I know that the Bible is true, and that Jesus Christ is who the Bible proclaims him to be. And I know it's true because through the teachings of the Bible and through faith in Jesus Christ, through having a relationship with God, that's what's getting me out of identifying, out of these struggles and issues, and that's what I have found most beneficial in being able to move beyond. If you're able to do it solely through these helpful groups and medications and all that, that is absolutely wonderful. I'm happy and thrilled for you. But let me, being a guy that does believe in Jesus, that loves Jesus and believes he loves me and wants to share that with other people so that they can find what I have found, let me just say, even if you can successfully move beyond these struggles and failures without Jesus, how much greater can your life be? How much more potential would you fulfill by having a relationship with Jesus, by believing in him like I do, and studying the stories that are in the Bible? Your life would be so much richer and more full, and you would find more strength for getting over your struggles and failures. You would find that you would have more strength to define yourself as he defines you, and not as these issues define you. And one last thought, because I am in love with Jesus, and I know he loves me, and because I know all this is true from the experiences of my life, I've got to share this with you. If I was able, by myself or with the help of some fine organization, to get beyond a struggle, let's say a drug addiction, okay, we'll pull crack out since we talked about that with Mike Lindell. I would hate to come to the end of my life and find out that Jesus, who I chose not to believe in, was the real deal. And now all I can say is, well, I'm going to have to spend eternity in hell instead of with him in a loving relationship because I didn't believe in him, but at least I'm not a crack addict anymore. I encourage any of you out there, like I said, find you one of these great organizations if there's an addiction or, if you've been victimized in some way and you need help getting beyond that. If you need to see a doctor and get medicine, take it. You do not have to stay in the dark place. You do not have to stay stuck in your struggles. They do not define you. But let me also encourage you. Get with somebody. Email us at johnscoolministries.com or as you were, email ministries at yahoo.com. And we'll be happy to talk with you or pray with you, whatever you need, to help you find this great relationship in Jesus Christ that will not only give you more strength for getting beyond those dark places, but will give you much more fulfilled life than anything you could accomplish on your own. Like I said, just a little bit of from my heart to yours. I know what it's like to struggle. I know what it's like to spend a long time in a dark place. And but I also know what the love of Jesus is like. I also know about the strength that he gives me and the peace that he gives me. And I just had to spend a little time and share that with you.